Alright everyone, this is a story I wasn't actually going to even bother talking about because when you give it attention, it just, makes it spread further. And so really the worst defamatory attacks from some of the authoritarianism-loving fascists at places like Right Wing Watch, who I think sometimes don't even realize they're being used by pawns, as pawns by multi-billionaires, to set a legal and social precedent for corporate groups to be able to regulate speech and crack down on any dissent. It's a long game for them. They just want anti-competition. That's why they use it as an excuse to go after alt-tech. It's not Mahate. It's not progressivism is great. Tim Cook doesn't care about your progressive views. Pichai there, he doesn't give a fuck about, Antifa or any of these things. They're using you as pawns to try to stifle competition. That's what this is about. Patreon loves it. When Subscribestar gets, profiled by some of these people, which is happening right now, it's happening for a reason. It's an attempt to destroy competition. It's literally corporate fascism. But these people are clueless to that because they don't have a working neuron in their head sometimes, and sometimes they've been bought off. Some of them mean well, but they're totally misled. If they, took a little while to think about what they're actually doing, some of them might deconvert from thinking that corporate censorship is the end-all, be-all of human dignity. But at first, Right Wing Watch put out an article where they're like, oh, well, PewDiePie has ties to anti-Semitism, big problem for the platform. And it sort of went around, generally the Will Sommers and Becca Lewis's, sort of that authoritarian pro-censorship side of the tech world. But now it's spread further and warrants actual discussion. Vox took up the article, and they stretched it way further. Like, Holt insinuating that PewDiePie is like dog whistling to anti-Semites to get a bigger subscriber base, which is, by the way, bullshit. By the way, totally ludicrous, and everyone who's a subscriber of his knows that's not happening, which is, more than 75 million people now. Yeah, the fan base is disproportionate to yours. I wonder what'll happen if he responds to this. What's happened is it's gone further because Vox took it up, but they stretched it way further than that initial story where it was just a profile on PewDiePie and just the general non-issue of hate on YouTube. Now you've got Vox saying, well, YouTube has a huge problem with hate, bigotry, and anti-Semitism. Coddles extremists. By the way, Laci Green is far-right. According to them, Sargon of Akkad is an alt-righter. Literally listed, I think, in the article. PewDiePie has ties to the far-right and anti-Semitism. I'm thinking to myself, this is defamation. This goes beyond the point of just being a vague smear piece, a bunch of bullshit. We've got Laci Green on there, who is a leftist, a fucking Sanders-style progressive. Her sin, according to these people, is that she became questioning towards some members of feminist communities who didn't like the fact that she didn't want to, I guess, kill all men or something. Somehow this is considered evidence that she's now an alt-righter because she used the term red-pilled, which used to be a joke, a fucking meme, years and years ago based on the Matrix movies that was all over 4chan and elsewhere, and it had nothing to do with necessarily political affiliation at all. It was a general meme at the time. And so those of us who were around at the time know the term a little bit differently from all these new kids on the block that are proclaiming themselves experts on tech and social media. Again, Will Sommer, Jared Holt, Becca Lewis, they don't know what they're talking about. If you think that Laci Green is far-right because she says, well, yeah, there's some feminists out there that are really, really out there because they're saying violent shit, they're saying off-the-wall shit, they're attacking other feminists for not being purist enough, or they're like, trans-exclusionary versus non-trans-exclusionary, and infighting and shit like that, and she says, well, I'm not really part of that anymore because it's become toxic. Oh my god, you're far-right, and Vox profiles her in there and inserts her alongside people who are actual identitarians, and it goes off on these rants. And keep in mind, this is Vox. So it's not like a lot of people take them seriously. But some people do. Some people think Vox actually conducts journalism. Now, I'm looking through this article. I can see very, very little actual journalism therein. She's been talking about, well, maybe I should get an attorney and look into my options on stuff like this. Yes, you absolutely should. So should PewDiePie. It's about time that those creators with larger audiences begin standing up for themselves in the legal sense. Because it's obvious that the pawns of the corporate media and the pawns of corporations in Silicon Valley are gunning for every independent creator, and they don't even necessarily realize what they're doing. Some of them are just ideologues. They've been primed to believe that, yes, indeed, Laci Green is actually far-right now. PewDiePie, who primarily is known for gaming and making random jokes, decides to mock the corporate media and all of a sudden becomes problematic. He gets profiled and defamed by the Wall Street Journal 2 years ago. He reacts. All of a sudden, that's taken as evidence of his problematic nature. Oh my God, he weighed in on news that directly involved him, that directly defamed him as though he was dog whistling to the entire alt-right. That doesn't make any sense. It's like saying, well, Richard Spencer's favorite band is Depeche Mode. Therefore, we need to make sure that the band talks about this issue constantly and flagellates itself and proclaims their love of Karl Marx, because otherwise it's evidence. They're platforming hate by being liked by this person or something. That's sort of like the logic that we're getting now. It's sad that so much tech news comes from people who are apparently oblivious about the situations they're talking about. And I say this, Becca Lewis's own Data Society report mentions me heavily. Like, not so much in the actual context. They totally skip over the part where I was involved in the Sargon-Spencer debate, probably because they can't really profile me as far right, but they have me on their little web and mention me in passing and stuff like that, as though I'm part of a crowd of people that's like really, really out there. And I'm looking at the list of people. I'm seeing like Destiny. Okay, so someone who's kind of tied to IBS in a little bit, but he's like actually far left, has talked about literally killing people on the far right. Bunty King, yes, very, very far right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then you've got, like, you know, the internet blood sports crowd, the dumpster fire crowd, which is, you know, so is it the internet sweetie squad medicers on that list. And then there are people on there that are like fucking liberals. Sargon prominently featured there. It's like, yes, because he makes a lot of appearances, does the live thing. Those that are overrepresented here either have their own live shows or go on a lot of live shows, especially for debate purposes. But you wouldn't know that reading the Data Society article, because that's just not mentioned. It's a lie by omission. Much like when we're talking about Pewdiepie, there's a hefty omission, there's a lie by structure in the Vox article. They're talking about how horrible he is, his ties to the alt-right, his ties to anti-Semitism, all these other people talking about it. They're all anti-Semitic and far-right and extremist, and YouTube's got a huge problem. Then you wait, you know, and once your attention wanes, because the article's dumber than a box of rocks, near the bottom it's like, oh yeah, by the way, X, Y, Z. PewDiePie, you know, basically disclaimed this, apologized, took the clip down and stuff. And it's just so dumb. And the thing is, another thing is, people, I think, are jealous of PewDiePie. They're also jealous of a lot of the other names that appear in these articles. If you're named in one of these articles, I have a feeling in some cases there's an element of jealousy. Because someone is jealous that we can pull in the kind of audience totals they can only dream of. I'm 5 or 6 times the size of the circulation of every account associated with Right Wing Watch. There's gotta be a little bit of jealousy involved there, therefore, when I get defamed by them, which happened some time ago. PewDiePie has more circulation than pretty much any TV show on the fucking cable news. He's got more circulation than most A-list bands. He's got more circulation than almost anything. He's one of the most well-known faces in the fucking entire world. It'd be funny if he ran for politics. They'd probably just call him a Nazi if he tried. He could join the fucking Liberal Democrats. Isn't he in the UK? Okay, he joins the Lib Dems and runs to be an MP. He still gets called a Nazi probably at that point. Dude, the dude is not a Nazi. He's not far right. He doesn't have ties to the alt-right. You are looking for reasons to bitch about him because you know it'll be good clickbait, and you know a lot of people will respond to your antagonism because he has a lot of fans, and you'll get more ad revenue. That's what it's about for Vox. And for these smaller sites, they are ideologically inclined, but they don't even realize what you are fundamentally arguing for is for multi-billionaires who run sometimes trillion-dollar companies within a monopolistic framework tied with government providing government services and getting government subsidies. You think that they need to circumvent the spirit of free speech and expression in order to police what people say and hear and believe. It's not just on the content creator side. It's not just on the side of saying, well, they're suppressing people who make content. Yeah, absolutely. They're also suppressing the ability of people to absorb that content. And it is no different than when in the past people said, well, we need to censor X, Y, and Z. This is an exception, because this group is particularly harmful to society in a particular problem. Goths were profiled this way. Rock and roll in general. Heavy metal, certainly late 70s through the mid 80s, heavily profiled this way. You know, rap music, think of Eminem and the moral panic that surrounded him. Simply as a single into fucking visual, a minor moral panic emerged for years there because he dared to say fuck. Oh my god, a white person doing rap, our kids are listening to it. Wow, it's no longer just in the inner cities, this is a terrible thing. They'll hear about gangbanging and carrying guns and having premarital sex and drugs and so. Oh my god, he's talking about doing pills. What a little Jimmy think. Same fucking bullshit. And did it destroy society? No. And the alt-right's not going to destroy society, but corporate censorship might. You best be very fucking careful what happens here. And these people, Right Wing Watch, and Vox, and HuffPost, and The Verge, and the Becca Lewises, and the Will Sommers, and all these other authoritarian lovers, they will be fundamentally responsible for having ruined Western civilization if that ends up happening and being enshrined. Yes, absolutely. They will have convinced the population, yeah, we need to give corporations more power. This is, by the way, a liberal thing to think. It's progressive to want to give power to corporations. Places like Apple enslaves people overseas. Child labor using North Korean minerals. What a wonderful guy Tim Cook is. They applaud so happily when he talks about how hate has no place on his platforms. Even though it does, it just depends on what kind of hate it is now, doesn't it? That's about all. Peace out.